Nikola Tesla, Revising the Past. Part 2, Furthering the Work of Edward Muybridge, a pioneer in motion pictures. In 1888 and 1891, he had his first patents on a device he called the kinetograph, and a few years later, he developed a fully working movie camera and projection system. In 1893, Edison could write to the elderly Muybridge that he now had a peep show device that people would pay 5 cents to see. The Morganization of GE created an even greater foe for Westinghouse, but also a critical problem for GE. Whereas Westinghouse was blocked from using an efficient light bulb, GE was blocked from generating AC, as the Edison patents were only valid for another 2 years. Certainly Westinghouse was in the better position. But in 1891-92, it was still too early in the game to realize this. From the point of view of the courts, it was still undecided as to who the author of the AC polyphase system really was, even though Westinghouse had the Ferraris paid the trump card to back those of Tesla's, and so, over the next few years, Westinghouse was forced to sue not only a number of subsidiaries of GE but also some independents, such as William Stanley, who were now producing polyphase systems on their own. From GE's point of view, there was a whole host of patents in AC that Thomson owned, but any others that they could obtain would undoubtedly help in the legal arena. Thus, they approached Charles Steinmetz with a scheme to work on improvements on AC designs in such a way that they would obscure Tesla's role. Attracted to the intrigue, Steinmetz accepted the challenge. The fray between Westinghouse and GE took a new turn in the race to win the bid to light the upcoming Chicago World's Fair and to harness Niagara Falls. In the courts, the suits switched from light bulbs to power generation, and at their respective plants attention turned toward a way to compete with the success achieved by Brown and Toporowski. For Westinghouse Corporation, Schmidt, Scott, and Lamy could confer with Tesla, while Stilwell and Schallenberger brooded, and the money men reluctantly agreed to dismantle the very lucrative but outmoded Collard-Gibbs machinery. For GE, the situation was more complex. They had hoped that someone like Steinmetz or Thomson could come up with a competing design, but they hadn't realized that Tesla held all the fundamental patents. Quite simply, there was no other system. Tesla had understood the foundation. One couldn't proceed without him. Thomson and Steinmetz were reduced to figuring out ways to somehow bypass the patents by designing teaser currents or some other smokescreen device in order to pretend that they had created a separate invention. In a case of industrial espionage, Thomson Houston apparently paid a janitor to steal the Tesla blueprints from the Westinghouse plant. Embarrassed to explain how the blueprints ended up at Lynn, Thomson said that he needed to study the Tesla motor designs to make sure that his were different. The intrigue must have triggered a variety of emotions in Steinmetz. He had already lived a clandestine life in Germany by editing a radical socialist newspaper under a pseudonym during the so-called Reign of Terror. He had learned to use secret passwords at radical meetings and write with invisible ink, as when he carried love notes between his leader, the charismatic revolutionary Heinrich Lux, who had been jailed for his activities, and Lux's girlfriend. Although Steinmetz never renounced his affiliation with the socialist movement, he supported a rather unscrupulous capitalistic corporate structure that was motivated not only by the all-consuming profit motive, but also by its ability to subvert the law to achieve its ends. This new situation thereby only served to heighten his contradictory nature. His affiliation with the Machiavellian policies of GE induced Steinmetz to abandon his ideals. His opus on AC, theory and calculations of alternating current phenomena, co-authored with Ernst Julius Berg, a colleague educated at the Royal Polytechnicum in Stockholm, and first published in 1897, just 3 years after Tesla's own compendium, omitted any reference to Tesla at all. By the turn of the century, Berg's name on the cover, like Lux's love notes, disappeared. At the time, Tesla's book, The Inventions, Researches and Writings of Nikola Tesla, edited by T.C. Martin, was a veritable Bible for all engineers in the field. It included chapters on alternating current motors, the rotating magnetic field, synchronizing motors, rotating field transformers, polyphase systems, single-phase motors, etc. That it does not appear in the bibliography of Steinmetz's work is astounding. In the foreword to Steinmetz's second text, Theoretical Elements of Electrical Engineering, written in 1902, the author tries to explain why he omitted reference to the inventor of the AC polyphase system. Of later years, Steinmetz wrote, "The electrical literature has been haunted by so many theories, for instance of the induction motor, which are incorrect. This was a natural opening that might have catapulted Steinmetz into a discussion which would set the record straight, but he chose a pusillanimous path instead. This decision not only aided in obfuscating the truth as to the origin of the invention, it also bolstered his own image in the corporate community. As these texts on AC would serve as important templates for subsequent writers, it was quite common in the later years for engineers to obtain degrees, study AC, and even write textbooks on the topic themselves and never come across Tesla's name. Clearly, it was to GE's benefit to pretend that Tesla never existed, and it was to Westinghouse's benefit to pretend that the Lauffen-Frankfurt transmission had never occurred. The next generation of engineers, and those that followed, never realized that obfuscation had taken place. That is one of the main reasons why Tesla's name practically vanished. Perhaps the most blatant case of misrepresentation occurred a generation later, when Michael Pupin published his Pulitzer Prize-winning autobiography From Immigrant to Inventor. Pupin was able to write long passages on the history of AC and ignore Tesla almost completely. Tesla's name appears only once in passing in the 396-page book. In this work, Pupin described 4 historical events, very important in the annals of electrical science. That is, the Lauffen-Frankfurt transmission, the harnessing of Niagara Falls, the formation of and the lighting of the Chicago World's Fair by AC. Mentioning the Westinghouse concern only once as a company that was interested in AC, Pupin concluded if the Thomson-Houston company had contributed nothing else than Elihu Thomson to GE, it would have contributed more than enough. Thus, the senseless opposition to the alternating current system vanished quickly. In the preface, Pupin had the audacity to write that the main object of my narrative is ... to describe the rise of fidelism in American science, and particularly in physical sciences and the related industries as witness to this gradual development. This testimony has competence and weight, considering that Pupin is generally remembered fondly by the engineering world. It is my opinion that he failed to live up to the standards to which he aspired. These attempts to alter the past turned the stomach of a number of key players, most notably C.E. Brown of Oerlikon Works in Switzerland, and one of his top engineers, B.N.C. Behrendt, a staunch man with a granite profile and hound dog eyes. Brown, who, with Dobrowolski, had been the first engineer to transmit electrical power over long distances with Tesla's AC invention, had learned of Tesla's work from British engineer Gisbert Kapp, who published Tesla's 1888 talk in Kapp, who authored one of the most brilliant textbooks on induction motors, wrote Tesla on June 9, 1888, to request the use of his paper for the magazine. Based on Tesla's treatise and Kapp's refinements, Brown was able to construct before Westinghouse probably the first successful motor ... in 1890. Brown's succinct response, conspicuously placed in Electrical World, was directed specifically to Carl Herring, one of the first writers to imply that the invention was Dobrowolski's. The three-phase current as applied at Frankfurt, Brown wrote, is due to the labors of Mr. Tesla, and will be found clearly specified in his patents. Herring's first response was to continue the artifice. I do not think, Herring said, that Mr. Brown does proper justice to the real inventor of this modification of the Ferrari's Tesla system, namely Dobrowolski. But Tesla demanded a more clear-cut communique. After a discussion with W.J. Johnston, who would later allow Herring to take over the editorship of Electrical World, Tesla was able to obtain the following response. We desire to state right here, Johnston said, that the Electrical World has over and over put itself on record as upholding Mr. Tesla's priority. The magazine was also able to extract from Herring the following. Dobrowolski, though he may have been an independent inventor, admits that Tesla's work is prior to his. Although Herring was loath to admit Tesla's priority, at the same time he placed his finger on an important point. Tesla himself had not demonstrated physically that his system could be used for long-distance transmission. Certainly Westinghouse at that time was not aware of the vast benefits of the system. Had it not been for the success at Lauffen-Frankfurt, Tesla's apparatus might have evolved differently in America. Herring did not have access to various details of the Westinghouse motors, and that was because the work was not in the public domain. Great amounts of money were spent to keep the work private. Had a Lauffen-Frankfurt type of transmission occurred in America without Westinghouse's permission, it would have clearly been a case of patent piracy. Tesla issued patents in most of the industrialized countries, and it appears likely that Brown and Oerlikon licensed Tesla's patents and paid him for the privilege of using them. Coincidentally, Gisbert Cap's treatise, which was initially published in 2 installments in December 1890 in The Electrician in London, appears also to have been used extensively by Charles Steinmetz in 1891 and 1892, while he was constructing AC motors at Amakin's shop in New York before he was hired by Thomson, according to B.N.S.E. Behrend, author of the first definitive works on the AC motor, and Major from Switzerland. Behrend came to work for the New England Granite Company, a division of in 1896, particularly upset by the tactics of such writers as Steinmetz in using other people's work and leaving their names out of the bibliography. Behrend would later become one of Tesla's most important allies. In the foreword of his book, Behrend stated, "The tendency to write books without references is due largely to the desire to avoid the looking up of other writers' papers. The reader is not benefited by such treatment, as he may frequently prefer the original to the treatment of the author whose book he is reading. Besides, a knowledge of the literature of our profession is essential to an understanding of the art and to an honest interpretation of the part played therein by our fellow workers." Writing to Oliver Heaviside specifically about such authors as Steinmetz, Behrend quoted Huxley, "Magna est ventis et prevalebit," translating and modifying the quote as follows: "Truth is great, certainly, but considering her greatness, it is curious what a long time she is apt to take about prevailing." The body of his book began with this sentence: "The induction motor, or rotary field motor, was invented by Mr. Nikola Tesla in 1888. Tesla's picture also appeared as the frontispiece. Throughout his life, Behrend sought to set the record straight as to who the real author of the AC polyphase system was. When Westinghouse sued New England Granite for patent infringement, Behrend was placed in an embarrassing and disagreeable position. The High Command, which stemmed from Wall Street, wanted him to testify against Tesla. On May 3, 1901, Behrend wrote back to the attorney Arthur Stem, "My dear sir, you will see that I am now, even more than I have been before, of the opinion that it is not possible for us to bring forth arguments that could go to show the invalidity of the Tesla patents in suit. I cannot undertake this duty,